the last day of 2024 here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dabi. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with the deadly plane crash here in South Korea. Authorities are aiming to identify all 179 victims by Tuesday morning using DNA analysis and fingerprints. Year-end celebrations and New Year's Eve celebrations are taking place on a much smaller scale, with sunrise festivals also being cancelled. And the plane crash raises questions over the role of the concrete wall at the end of the runway that the plane collided with some experts saying fatalities could have been minimized had the plane not slammed into the wall. A South Korean court has approved an arrest warrant to detain suspended President Yoon over his martial law order, the first time such a warrant has been approved for a sitting South Korean president. The court's decision came just a day after an investigation team filed the warrant. Efforts to identify all 179 victims of the air tragedy continue as the bereaved families and the people across the country continue to mourn. Our correspondent Park Gon-woo is standing by down in Muan County. Now, Konu, you are at one of the main joint memorial altars set up down there, right?
That's true, Tommy. I'm currently at one of the main joint memorial altars around 5 kilometers away from the airport at the Muan Sports Complex in Muan County, southwest part of the country. Mourners across all age groups have been arriving at the site since early this morning to mourn the 179 lives lost in South Korea's deadliest plane accident after thousands of mourners visited the site the day before. Here's what one mourner had to say.
I couldn't sleep at all yesterday because I was so sad. That's why I came here from the very early morning. I canceled all my year-end and New Year's gatherings to welcome the new year calmly.
So there are many people that are still visiting the site, and I can even hear people weeping right at this moment. A new joint memorial altar was also set up on the first floor of Muan International Airport this morning from 9 a.m., following requests from the bereaved families. There are now at least 88 memorial altars across the country, including in Gwangju City, where the majority of the passengers who lost their lives in the airplane crash were from.
Kanu, we have to talk about the victims. How is the process for identifying the victims of the crash coming along now?
So the identification of at least 174 out of the total 179 victims has been confirmed, while efforts to recover their personal belongings are ongoing. DNA analysis is underway to help identify the bodies of the remaining victims. Authorities had hoped the identification process would be completed by this morning, but the Transport Ministry later on said it would take a bit longer. The bodies of 90 victims are planned to be returned to their families soon. 4 bodies have already been returned to their families. Acting President Choi Sang-mok said maximum support will be provided for funerals in accordance with the wishes of the bereaved families. He also said a special inspection of all Boeing 737-800 aircrafts, the same model as the one that crashed in service in South Korea, will be conducted.
Indeed, the entire nation is grieving. In fact, the national period of mourning lasts until this Saturday. Konu, what's going to happen all the year-end and New Year's events then?
That is correct. Following the national mourning period lasting until January 4th, such events have been now either canceled or has scaled down to commemorate the victims of the tragedy. For example, the annual Boshingak New Year's Eve bell ringing ceremony taking place tonight has been scaled down, with all the performances canceled and only the bell ringing program left, proceeding with a calm atmosphere, of course. Music concerts and year-end award ceremonies have been delayed or canceled as well. That's all I have for you now. Back to you, Tommy.
Alrighty, that was our Park Gon-woo live from one of the memorial altars down in Muan. Now, all eyes are on what factors played a key role in such a high death toll. One being looked at is the concrete wall that the plane smashed into. Our Choi Min-jung reports.
Last Sunday, a Jeju airplane crashed into a concrete wall after skidding off the runway at Muan International Airport during a forced landing. Aviation experts are questioning the significance of the wall located off the runway in what was South Korea's worst plane crash in history. Experts suggest that the high number of fatalities was likely due to the plane hitting the wall.
The passengers were killed by hitting a solid structure just over the end of the runway, where a solid structure should not be.
The concrete structure holds localizers, which are antennas that help navigate airplane landings. The Transport Ministry explained that there are no standardized designs or regulations for installing such facilities.
The type of foundation used for the localizers varies depending on the airport. For example, some use concrete structures, while others use pile-type foundations.
The official added that airports in Gimpo, Daegu, Yeosu, Jeju, Gyeongju, and Pohang also have localizers placed on top of concrete structures. The ministry also implied that the use of concrete was not problematic, as similar practices are observed abroad, including in Los Angeles in the U.S., as well as in Spain and South Africa. Yet, the government said it would thoroughly investigate if there are any correlations.
We are currently reviewing the relevant regulations and international practices, and we plan to conduct a thorough investigation to determine if there is any correlation with the accident.
The findings from the investigation will not only be crucial to uncovering what caused the crash and the high number of fatalities, but also for the safety of passengers and crew members at other airports. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
And on top of the concrete wall, the question of excessive usage of the plane for profitability has been raised. According to industry sources, the plane operated 13 flights in just 48 hours prior to the tragedy. Lee Seung-jae has more.
Following the Jeju Air passenger plane crash that killed 179 people on Sunday, questions have been raised about whether the low-cost carrier has been overly focused on profitability by focusing their planes in service longer than their competitors. According to the Financial Supervisory Service on Monday, Jeju Air's average monthly passenger flight operation time per aircraft in the third quarter of this year stood at 418 hours, the longest among the 6 domestic airlines. The figure surpasses full-service carriers, including Korean Air, at 355 hours, Asiana Airlines at 335 hours, while other low-cost carriers Jin Air, T-Way Air, and Air Busan all recorded less than 400 hours. The very plane that was involved in the tragic accident was also found to have operated 13 flights in the 48 hours before the incident. While it traveled from Muan, Jeju Island, and Incheon, and international destinations during that 48-hour period, the plane typically served as a charter flight for group tours organized by a Gwangju-based travel agency. The recent holiday season traveling may have also increased the flight operations of the passenger plane. The concerns over Jeju Air's passenger planes have also led to a surge in cancellations. According to industry sources, as of Monday at 1 p.m., 68,000 Jeju Air flight reservations have been canceled. Of them, 33,000 were domestic flights, while 34,000 were for international routes. Jeju Air said most of the cancellations came shortly after the deadly crash on Sunday. Domestic travel agencies have also reported a surge in cancellations of tour packages. While the travel industry is closely monitoring the current situation, it expects demands for travel to continue declining as public anxiety lingers. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
So authorities are struggling to pinpoint the exact cause of the deadly crash, but what could have been the trigger? Let's discuss all the variables with an aviation expert, Professor Kim Hong-chul, this morning. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. So there are numerous speculations over what contributed to the crash, but let's start with this bird strike theory. How devastating can a bird strike be?
A bird strike refers to a collision between an aircraft in flight and a bird. Research shows that when an aircraft flying at 370 kilometers per hour collides with a single bird weighing less than 1 kilogram, the resulting impact can reach approximately 5 tons. Such a force can easily shatter the aircraft's windshield. If a bird is ingested into an engine, it can cause engine malfunctions, potentially leading to cascading failures in electrical and hydraulic systems, as well as critical issues like the inability to extend the landing gear. Bird strikes are quite common. For instance, in the United Kingdom, over 1,400 bird strikes were reported in 2022, with around 100 instances directly affecting aircraft. In South Korea, 650 bird strike cases were recorded across 14 airports between 2019 and August of this year. Notably, this instance is the deadliest in South Korean history.
Indeed. So hundreds of bird strikes, and these bird strikes are not uncommon. Then what about the landing gear problem? What does it mean for landing gear to malfunction this time?
The landing gear consists of two main components, the nose gear and the main gear system. The main gear system facilitates braking through a wheel braking mechanism, while the nose gear provides directional control on the ground via a nose wheel steering system. In essence, without a functioning landing gear system, pilots may not be able to land safely. Even if they manage to land, they may face significant challenges in reducing the aircraft speed or maintaining directional control on the ground.
Well, we have to talk about this concrete wall that was stalled at the end of the runway. Now, some are suggesting that had the wall not been there, the plane would have instead hit a fence. Is that so? What's your take on this?
Well, according to South Korea's Deputy Transport Minister, both ends of the runway at Muan International Airport are equipped with safety zones featuring green buffer areas before reaching the outer wall. However, in this instance, the aircraft likely failed to extend its landing gear and flaps due to a possible hydraulic system failure. Usually, a no-flap landing requires a high approach speed, about 10% more. To make matters worse, the pilot landed the aircraft at the one-third mark of the runway, which is 2.8 kilometers long, already 8 meters shorter than those at other airports. Consequently, despite the presence of green buffer zones, they might not have been sufficient to stop the aircraft before it collided with the wall. I think investigators should consider this issue seriously. As for whether the absence of the wall could have reduced the severity of this incident, I believe it would be premature to speculate. A definitive answer will emerge after the authorities conduct a thorough investigation into this incident.
Definitely. It sounds like a combination of all these variables that could have led to the crash. Now, to look into this case, 2 black boxes have been recovered, which will hopefully provide key clues to what exactly happened. Now, how long will it take to retrieve information from the 2 black boxes then?
The black box, also known as the flight recorder, consists of 2 devices in a commercial aircraft, the flight data recorder, FDR, and the cockpit voice recorder, CVR. The FDR and CVR are designed to survive crashes like this. International regulations mandate that they withstand impacts of up to 3,400 gravity forces and temperatures exceeding 1,100 Celsius. It has been confirmed that the flight data recorder of Jeju Air Flight 7C2216 was retrieved with parts of its exterior detached. If both devices are intact and undamaged, the decoding process could be completed within a week. However, if data damage is detected, the process may take at least a month or more. In cases of severe damage to the FDR, the investigation may need to be handed over to the U.S. National Transportation Safety Board, which could extend the black box decoding process to over 6 months.
So what you're saying is that those black boxes need to be sent to the U.S. for further analysis. Is that correct?
That's right. Well, if it has a heavily damaged.
Exactly. Well, Professor Kim, before I let you go, prevention is key at all costs so that nothing like this ever happens again. What do you think needs to be investigated thoroughly, especially for a future prevention like this?
I would like to emphasize 2 key points. First, it is crucial to identify the exact cause of this tragic incident to prevent similar disasters in the future. We must implement the appropriate solutions based on our findings. Second, thorough investigation of the airport safety systems is essential. With the significant increase in the use of newly developed regional airports for both domestic and international flights, it is vital that we establish robust safety measures to mitigate the risk of unexpected problems, including ground and in-flight emergencies.
Alrighty, Professor Kim, thank you so much for your time and your insight this morning. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
For the first time ever, an arrest warrant has been issued for a sitting president here in South Korea. A Seoul court on Tuesday morning approved the warrant to arrest impeached President Yoon on charges of sedition. A search warrant was also issued for his residence. No other details on the warrant have been released. Now, this comes just a day after the warrant was requested by the Corruption Investigation Office for high-ranking officials who are investigating the allegations behind President Yoon's declaration of martial law on December 3rd. This was an expected move as President Yoon, for the third time, refused to show up for a questioning session on Sunday. As the won to US dollar exchange rate inches closer to the 1,501 level, the average exchange rate for the fourth quarter of this year also jumped to the highest level since the 2009 financial crisis. According to the Bank of Korea on Tuesday, the average won to US dollar exchange rate, based on the daily closing price for the fourth quarter this year, stood at 1,398.75 won. That's the highest level in 15 years and 9 months since the first quarter of 2009 during the global financial crisis. Now, the one weekend in the fourth quarter after the re-election of Donald Trump and the domestic political instability that followed the emergency martial law declaration. The U.S. Fed's recent rate cuts also contributed to the stronger greenback. South Korea's annual consumer inflation slowed to the mid-2-point range this year, marking a more subdued pace compared to 2023. Data from the Statistics Korea showed that the Consumer Price Index, a measure of inflation, rose by 2.3% year-on-year. This is the lowest rate since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, as it climbed to 2.5% in 2021 and peaked at 1.5% in 2022. Before settling at 3.6% last year. The price of fresh produce surged significantly this year, jumping nearly 10% and pushing inflation above the 2% target. Now, let's take a look at the stories from around the world with our Kim Xiang. Good morning, Xiang.
Good morning, Dami. Great to be with you on my final newscast for the world now.
You will be missed. Xiang, why don't we wrap up the year with the Ukraine crisis? What's the latest?
That's right, Dami. In time for the end of the year, Moscow and Kyiv have conducted a major swap of prisoners of war. In a deal brokered by the United Arab Emirates, Russia and Ukraine exchanged hundreds of prisoners of war on Monday, with the Russian Defense Ministry saying 150 Russian troops returned home, while Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said a total of 189 Ukrainians had been freed. In what is the 59th prisoner exchange since Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Zelensky said that the Ukrainian prisoners included military personnel, National and Border Guards, along with 2 civilians who had been captured by Russian forces in 2022. Now, while Ukraine has not published the exact number of prisoners of war held captive by Russia, BBC sources suggest that the number from the near 3-year war is more than 8,000. The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres published this year's annual New Year's message on Monday, expressing his concerns over global warming, which he called a climate breakdown.
Throughout 2024, hope has been hard to find. Wars are causing enormous pain, suffering and displacement. Inequalities and divisions are rife, fueling tensions and mistrust. The top 10 hottest years on record have happened in the last 10 years, including 2024. This is climate breakdown in real time.
The UN chief added that in 2025, it is essential for countries to put the world on a safer path by cutting emissions and supporting the transition to a renewable future. As we count down towards the new year, Brazil's Rio de Janeiro is preparing for the world's largest New Year Eve celebration. Rio's iconic Copacabana beach, which is hosting the New Year's Eve party, is expected to be attended by some 2.5 million people, including locals and visitors from around the globe. Now, Rio authorities were seen finalizing and inspecting the main stage in the middle of the beach on Monday, while the city's firefighters inspected the rafts that will be transporting over 15 tons of fireworks for the strike of the clock at midnight on the 1st of January. Some impressive artworks went under the hammer in 2024. L'Empire des Lumières, Belgian surrealist artist René Magritte's oil painting depicting a paradoxical combination of day and night, was sold at a Christie's auction in New York for some $121 million. Now, other works such as British painter David Hockney's California, which had not been seen in public for over 40 years, was sold at another Christie's auction this year for some $24 million, while Rest of the Flight into Egypt, painted by 16th century Venetian artist Titian, fetched some $22 million. While the renowned pieces of art fetched impressive prices, subversive artist Maurizio Catalan's artwork Comedian, which is a banana duct-taped on a wall, also made headlines when it was sold for $6.24 million.
A chilly wind is bringing temperatures down a couple of degrees this morning, and highs will also be much lower than Monday. However, readings on New Year's Day will hover way above norms under mostly sunny skies. The last sunset and first sunrise of the new year will be visible wherever you are. The first sunshine in Korea will be on Dokdo, the easternmost islands, at 7:26 a.m. Meanwhile, wildfire danger in East Coast regions remains high, with dry weather alerts remain in place. Afternoon highs will be 2 to 8 degrees lower than yesterday, topping out at 4 degrees Celsius here in the capital and Chuncheon. Daegu, Gyeongju make it to 7 degrees. Sunny skies are expected nationwide. However, southern provinces will have high levels of fine dust during the first half of the day. We'll have temperatures right around norms through Sunday, with spotty mix of rain and snow in the forecast in the capital on the same day. Well, that's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
That's all we have for this morning. A new day at Arirang will be back on Thursday at the same time, 10 a.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.